Hey guys, this is Dr. Celaya. I hope you're doing well. Have you ever thought about your smell? Well, it's nothing more than another sense, kind of like your hearing or what you see, but it just feeds the brain different information. A lot of us think of smell as just a wonderful thing that helps us with our food, right? Boy, that smells good. But it's more than that. What it was meant originally to do is to protect us, right? To protect us maybe from a predator that we can smell, or even maybe bad food that might poison us. And so it's a real important part of our neurological basis to really help us understand what's going on with us on a neurological point of view, right? They're so closely tied together. So the majority of LLE patients, probably about 80%, have problems with smell. And that brings us to the next understanding. What is smell? Well, to understand that, we have to understand how your brain functions. When you're born with a finite number of brain cells or neurons, and those nerve cells die every day, and we'll call that neural degeneration. And they die when they're not necessarily needed or not functioning correctly, or, there's a lot of different theories. There's another theory called neuroplasticity. And what that means is how other nerve cells around the ones that are dying or degenerating make up for the jobs for the ones that are dying. And so it's real important to make sure that we have neuroplasticity outpacing neurodegeneration. And if that occurs, we'll have a healthy brain. On the other hand, if you have neurodegeneration, meaning the nerve cells are dying faster than the healthy ones can make up for, then we'll have more of a problem, right, with the dementias, the Alzheimer's, the other neurological diseases. So we understand that smell is nothing more than our brain telling us what our olfactory gland is picking up. And when we first smell it, our brain puts it into our memory. It may take a few more times than the first time. But when you smell it again, it's your brain's way of picking up the information and then telling you what you're smelling. So it's remembering. So a large portion of what we smell is what our brain is picking up and how it remembers what we're smelling. So as a result, there's a lot of different diseases that can be associated with smell. So there are tests out there that can help us understand what we're smelling and how they're related to neurodegeneration. And those tests can sometimes pick up their neurodegenerative conditions way before any of the symptoms happen. And so, for example, with Parkinson's, there's no way to test if you have Parkinson's disease other than the symptomology and maybe perhaps some MRI scans. So with certain smell tests, we may be able to determine if somebody's got Parkinson's or any other diseases like we're going to go over here in a minute. It could be anywhere from 10 to 20 years before you get the disease. Wouldn't you like to know ahead of time? So maybe there's something that you can do. You can change your lifestyles. There's different things that we can do for neurodegenerative diseases, especially if you know well in advance. Let's take a look at some studies. So one of the big things that you think about when you see any research article coming out and saying that smell is impaired with certain diseases, is it true smell or is it brain cognition that's really changing what your thought process is and the inability to remember what you're smelling? And here in this research article, it states that odor identification is impaired early in Alzheimer's disease and may be more influenced by cognitive status, meaning your brain and how it thinks, than its acuity of odor detection, meaning what you truly smell, the gland itself, the smell gland, which is not altered until later in the disorder. So let's take a look at this research article from 1987, and it states that recent studies of Alzheimer's disease patients have demonstrated a marked structural and biochemical alterations in brain regions associated with olfactory function, meaning smell, and detriments in the ability to identify odorants. So in other words, they weren't able to smell different things and remember what they were. Okay, let's take a look at another article that talks about smell and MS. And it says, we confirm that olfactory function is impaired in MS. and show for the first time that such dysfunction is related to a broad range of cognitive measures, meaning thought process. Our data suggests that olfactory dysfunction, meaning inability to smell, might be considered as an indirect measure of MS severity. So they're basically stating that they can help understand a little bit more about MS and how severe it is by how you smell or what you can't smell. All right, here's an article on Parkinson's disease, and it says probable RBD, which is rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder, and hyposmia, which is a lack of smell, are strongly associated with Parkinson's disease. There's a lot more research articles on Parkinson's. I'm not going to go over them all, but if you want, you can go take a look, and there are plenty of them to choose from. All right, so here's an article on amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. And this is an autoimmune disease that attacks your motor neurons, and you end up with an inability to use your muscles. And so in this article, it states that this study suggests that olfactory dysfunction does exist in ALS patients. So if you're on the fence with a diagnosis, might you want to check your smell to see if there's an impaired smell? It may make a little bit of a difference. Okay, here's one more study, and it states that on the average, a person with low odor identification score declined more than twice as rapidly in perceptual speed and episodic memory as a person with high score. There are a lot of tests, and we're going to talk about one here very shortly. I could sit here all day long and go over research studies that have to do with neurodegenerative conditions and smell. And you have to understand that doing a research project on smell is really, really simple, and it's easy to do. These tests are simple, and the only thing you're basically doing is an observational study where you're watching the patient and or giving them questionnaires. So if you can think about a neurological degenerative condition and smell, I'm sure the study's already been done. Go take a look. There are hundreds, if not thousands of them. All right, so here we see the main standard of tests. It's developed by the University of Pennsylvania, and it's called the Smell Identification Test. And it comes in many different forms. Basically, it's just a small scratch and sniff area on each page that you then compare to 4 different answers. So, for example, let's say you scratch and you smell it, and it smells like whatever it smells like, and they give you 4 different answers to choose from, like cinnamon, vanilla, or orange, you get the point. And then you choose that answer. It's relatively simple. And the test comes in options of 40 different smells, or there's a basic test that comes in 12 different scents. And the research shows that even the basic is about 96% effective at determining the different smells and possible correlation between that and neurological deficit or diseases. All right, so this test isn't perfect. You have to understand there's so many different things that can affect it. Let's say you have a virus, right? A cold or a flu. You're not going to be able to smell well when you take the test. Take that into consideration. You have environmental toxins. You have genetics, epigenetics. You have a breakdown of the blood-brain barrier. And take myself, for example. God played an interesting trick on me. He gave me a big nose, but my ability to smell is not good at all. And on the other hand, my wife has extremely good smell. In fact, she can tell when I'm coming down with a cold or a flu way beforehand just by how I smell. Also, I just read an article on this lady who can smell Parkinson's in a patient up to 20 years before they get the disease. So you really have to take into account where you are with your smell way before you take the test, because it can make a difference. So now what? What do we do if we have an altered smell and everything else is considered to be normal, meaning it truly is an altered smell? Well, let's take a look at some solutions. All right, one of the first things you have to do is make sure that you take care of your blood sugar. When blood sugar is high as a result of eating processed foods, excess carbohydrates, even excess protein, it can increase your blood sugar, which can increase insulin, which can increase inflammation. And so, I don't know if you've heard, but Alzheimer's is even called type 3 diabetes. You have to avoid the bad fats, and they're huge, and they're all in all the processed foods. And we also have to make sure that we balance our omega-6 and omega-3 foods. And the omega-6 foods are everywhere, and they're inflammatory. And the omega-3s are a lot less prevalent, and they're anti-inflammatory. And you're going to find those in fish and veggies, and flax, and there's a few other foods as well. You also have to make sure that you get plenty of micronutrients. Well, the micronutrients keep everything going. It's something that you may not be getting in your food, and a good multi may make a big difference. The other thing is you have to fix the gut. If you have leaky gut, you're going to create inflammation. You're going to create autoimmune issues or even inflammatory responses, which can affect the brain. I don't know if you know, but the majority of your immune system is in your gut, and it's protecting us to make sure that we don't get things in our system that shouldn't be there. You also have to make sure that you remain mentally active. And that may be a tough one, especially when we start getting older. But you need to find out what you're not good at, and you need to start doing it. For example, if you've never been good at math, well, now's the time to be good at math. I know a gentleman who is a phenomenal teacher at a large institution, and he has gone on and basically started to learn how to play piano. Well, I think he's a mathematician, so it's a completely opposite of what he's doing. And my goodness, he's doing fantastic. It's not easy for him, but it makes a big difference to your mental ability and the ability to keep your mental health. Exercise is huge. It's a big, big difference as far as keeping your mental capacity. There was one study that followed more than 600 people aged 70 and older and found that those who engaged in more physical activity showed the least amount of brain shrinkage. And of course, we get into food. We kind of talked about food a little bit, but research shows that eating plenty of spinach, kale, collards, mustard greens can really help slow cognitive decline, meaning the greens. And the researchers believe that the high amount of vitamin K content in these vegetables is responsible for preserving our brain health. Another study tracked almost 1,000 older adults during 5 years and saw significantly less cognitive decline in participants who ate leafy green vegetables. So brain health isn't something that you may just end up with. It's something you're going to have to work on. There's also supplements that can make a big difference as well. I have one called Ultimine, and you might want to go take a look at it. It's on my website, drcelaya.com. There's also creatine, and we're going to do a whole video on creatine and neurological health. Vitamin D3 is basically, it's a neurosteroid. Makes a big difference to reduce inflammation and also so many other different things in your body. Vitamin D is huge. It's a hormone. Fish oil, have to make sure that you have fish oil that's really high in DHA and EPA. And DHA is really good for the brain, while EPA is good for inflammation. And you have to make sure that that fish oil is really clean. You want to make sure it doesn't have any toxins or metals in it, because that may make your brain worse. Vitamin B12, this is huge, and I just did a bunch of other videos on it. Go check it out. Curcumin, which is found in the spice of turmeric, has great anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective properties and helps protect the brain from oxidative stress. And you have acetyl L-carnitine, which stimulates energy production in brain cells. And here goes another one, phosphatidylserine, which is found in every cell membrane, but it's especially prevalent in the brain. There's different herbs as well, but one of them is bacopa, has been used to boost memory and cognitive performance and to reduce anxiety in Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years. And also probiotics, which make a big difference at calming the gut, which reduces inflammation. There's different forms of magnesium, the L-threonate, which makes a big difference for your brain health also. The list goes on, but it's something that you really have to make a concerted effort to keep your brain health, because you can see by who's around you, it's not something that normally happens to a lot of people, right? You see people degrading with mental issues, basically dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and the list is going on. In fact, I'm sure everybody knows somebody that's perhaps even in a lockdown facility because they're having memory issues. And what a terrible way to go. I wish that we weren't dealing with these issues, but we are. So you have to be aware of your mental ability and how to keep it. Extremely important. I hope this helps.